Great. Helps if I. Oh, great, I didn't. Boom. There we go. Oh, except nobody can be seen. Oh, and then they can. I feel like I need
All
a
right.
finger in the thumb in the shape of a hell of my own forehead. There it is. Then again, if it's mirrored, it needs to be that. Oh, or both.
I
I
just
am a
love the fact
triangle.
that
I am a triangle.
God. Ugh. So here we are. So and no, not now. So yes, we are here, episode 29, Popcast Movie Club. Um, don't let the disheveled state fool you. My glasses are that way. I don't have time, and I badly need to get my hair cut. But yeah, this is episode 29 of Popcast Movie Club, exclusively here on the Popcast Network, and we're going to talk about Chris's pick, and he's not here. Don't worry, he'll be here in a few, but that's a way to mention this. So yeah, thanks everyone for joining us last night. So now, even though we're not announcing a Walking Dead house at Halloween Horror Nights, as far as I know, we are still going to go back old school on Popcast Network. And there's something I need to say before we get started. I'm afraid I've got some bad news. So, what we're going to do moving forward to help with time constraints, because AJ's sleep schedule's all over the board. Ashley's in a whole different country, and I got to work early o'clock. So, try not to make these shows go forever. So, what we're going to do, we're going to cut out the middleman. If there is something that pertains to the topic of Movie Club, we will discuss it live here on the show. If there is something that is not necessarily part of the topic of Movie Club, we will get to it later in the evening if we have time. And if not, I will save it, put a pin in it, and we'll do it with the Q&A in 2 weeks. Bad news, Owen has spoken.
That's not really bad news.
Everything's,
Everything's.
I guess.
But I think it's good news if we'll be running smoothly or smoother.
Well, as much as Discord lets us.
And OBS.
Yeah.
OBS, Discord, don't know anymore. Watch New Legacy Inc. on Twitch. Anyway, because that's all I do anymore. Trying to make it so you can see me a little bit better with my horrible hair. Hi, friends. So, last but certainly not least, I mentioned him a minute ago, and he is the reason why we're doing episode 29 tonight. Even though you can't see him, you know him, you've heard him, and he's brought this pick to Movie Club. Welcome, Chris.
Oh,
I'm here.
there we go.
I'm just in dinner, but I'm here.
Okay. So
That was so well timed. The intro made him appear.
I blame my really swank Best Friends Las Vegas shirt that came in the AEW crate.
Nice.
So yeah, lots to talk about tonight. We're going to discuss this will be the first movie club where we're just going to talk. And if there's relevant information in chat, we'll go through it. And if not, then we'll save it to the end. And again, if we're going too long, then we'll save it to 2 weeks from now. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about Chris's pick. First off, I'm curious to see what led you to making this selection and your background with the movie that has yet to be named quite yet, because you're the one in charge, because it was your pick. So Chris, have at it.
When it came out, and I remember I was really excited to see it. It's funny now, but I didn't
Mike.
know most. Like I pretty much just been still.
I think the microphone isn't switched on for you, Chris.
Yeah, yes, Chris, you sound like you're talking to an intercom right now. Kind of sounds like the first time I tried to watch this movie on my computer before I went to that website and found a site that actually made it louder.
It was also like a more muted version of the John Denver Experience guy from South Park.
Yeah. Nice.
Is that any better?
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
You're good.
Okay. So basically, I watched this movie in the theater, and I remember I was really excited for it.
Yeah.
And what's funny now is I didn't know most of the cast. I pretty much knew Ben Stiller, and that was it.
Yep.
But this movie introduced me to a lot of people that I really enjoy now, like Jeffrey Rush and Hank Azaria, William H. Macy. So this was a big introduction to Greg Kinnear. This is a big introduction to a lot of people I didn't know that now I really, really enjoy. And I like to think that this movie started.
There we go.
Yeah, because I remember the main selling point for our demographic was that Kel was in a movie that wasn't Nickelodeon based, and that in 1999 that was mind blowing to us.
And fast forward in 2023, Kenan Thompson is the most tenured person on SNL. How things can change.
And I want to say it's this week that Good Burger 2 starts shooting.
That sounds right.
I don't know if that's good or bad news, but it is news.
Is it though? Is that part of the WGA?
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's already written if they're shooting.
Just please tell me we're getting some sort of a branded orange soda to promote the movie. Then I'll be happy.
Somebody's gonna probably hook into it. I'd have thought. Whether
It
it'll be a
before.
store
I'm
item or
curious why it
whether
wouldn't happen now.
somebody like Wendy's or whatever is gonna sort of make the plunge or whatever.
Good Burger pop-ups, because that's a thing now that is very successful with what the movies pop up and the Max pop up and the Beverly Hills 90210 pop up.
I'm more astounded.
I forgot Peach Pit's name for the longest time. My apologies.
It's the first time.
I could see going to like a gas station with good shakes. I could see like frozen, like the White Castle frozen burgers. I could see like frozen Good Burgers.
Yeah, they did that with the Simpsons movie when it came out. They converted a lot of 7-Elevens to Quickie Marts to promote the movie, and everything was like perfect, exactly what you would expect it to be, like it was in the television series.
And we also need Ed sauce on the condiment shelves.
No.
I'd be curious if they made an Ed sauce and put it in stores, what the recipe would actually be.
I don't know. It's weird because you have, going back to the Simpsons already. We're just getting there already. That's not that far of a traveling. We don't even need a passport. Needless to say, one of the things is like when we finally got a Flaming Moe in a theme park, when we brought in the Flaming Moe. And obviously everyone knows that one of the main ingredients of a Flaming Moe is children's cough syrup. But for purposes of a theme park, a Flaming Moe was literally just kind of orange soda with dry ice. So it's anyone's guess what would actually happen if Good Burger actually had a real pop-up. I feel like that would be a great idea, especially because they could charge like $70, $80 for special meals, just like they do with the movies pop-up, and they have those various other pop-ups that have done so well. I feel that it would just, like, it writes itself. Play the movie on the screen, have, like, pieces of memorabilia from the film, and just have it travel, just like what they did with movies.
You could also do a merch tie-in.
Yep.
With, like,
oh,
hats,
God, yes.
Shirts.
It's exactly the same thing that Kevin did with movies. It's just it would be Good Burger instead, and it would be played towards Nickelodeon instead of USQ.
So yeah,
if someone hasn't wrote this already and hasn't already put this in their mindset, then we want to make that happen one way or another.
So back to Mystery Man.
I probably should have looked this up. I actually think I want to start the Mystery Men discussion with a question.
Okay.
How much did this movie make exactly?
Box office wise, it made about 33.5 million. So technically, it was a failure because the budget was sort of in around the 65-70 million mark.
It was 68 million budget and $33 million it made. So,
Because I had always heard it in the context of being this massive bomb, but that was a weird thing for me to learn because, brother, I saw it with you and your best friend, and I think when I saw it with you, it was your second time seeing it.
Probably.
Which means it probably would have been a little bit in its run when we did.
Mm.
And I remember when we saw it, it was in the biggest auditorium, one of the biggest auditoriums, and it was full. So I've always been it's always been interesting to me, given the experience we got with this movie, that it's a movie that's notoriously did poorly. Because for a long time I had assumed it was big because of our personal experience. But yeah, that's a really that box office on that budget is pretty bad.
Especially with that cash.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there was a lot of that cast that wasn't really ready to break out quite yet, and some of them just broke out, so it was kind of like you get what you pay for.
3 of them were pretty fresh off of Oscar nominations, and one of them had recently won. The villain had recently won.
That is true.
Like it's very interesting how we talk about the cast, how eclectic the cast is. Because I remember reading somewhere that Janine Garofalo had turned it down, and what brought her back was the fact that William H. Macy and Jeffrey Rush were going to be in it.
Nice.
Because Jeffrey Rush was fresh off of Shine and Shakespeare in Love, and Macy was fresh off of Fargo.
Well, I mean, back
I was going to say, not to mention Kinnear having just done As Good as It Gets, too.
well, back in those days, Garofalo and Stiller went together for everything, so it made sense back then.
Yeah.
I was sort of amazed, all the sort of side characters. But I completely forgot Tom Waits is the mad scientist, and Ricky Jay as the cameo as Captain Amazing's publicist, with of course the classic line, "I'm not a magician," which I swear was just put in because
I laughed out loud.
If people know, they know. And then the one that really got me, fucking CeeLo Green as one part of the not so goody mob when he was part of the goody mob.
Yep.
Michael Bay is the one that wants to bring the brewskis.
Yep.
I feel like every group had somebody because Sung Kang, who is Han in the Fast and Furious movies, is in the Suzies.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, something occurred to me when I was rewatching it about that scene that had never occurred to me before.
Okay.
So, the idea is that he has all the gangs together, and then he says, Casanova says, "Can you dig it?" after he riles them up, which is a clear reference to the Warriors.
Of course.
Which makes sense because it's a lot of sort of gangs being brought together by
and what resonated with me this time is this is 1999, and Casanova Frankenstein has been in prison for 20 years, and the Warriors came out in 1979. So are we under the impression that the Warriors was probably the last movie Casanova Frankenstein saw before he got locked up?
That's what he was watching when he got busted.
That's why he.
Yeah, no.
It was like Dillinger. They caught him at the movie theater.
That's why all the gangs are sort of like old school. You know, the rich guys are sort of like the sort of 1920s style gangsters with the suits, but really they're sort of like corporate sort of things. You got the Disco Gang, the Disco Boys. Even the sort of the Susies are sort of very sort of 50s-esque sort of stuff. The can't remember the various girl groups. They're all sort of like period specific to be not beyond the 70s. So there's like sort of like there's no sort of like modern group in there. They're all sort of like, you know, not stereotypical but stylized in something retro, which would fit actually the timeline.
Honestly, if I want to put an aesthetic to it, I would say what would happen if Austin Powers was in the Batman Forever universe?
Well, yeah, the Joel. Well, anything Joel Schumacher.
I would say Champion City is, I think, grittier than Schumacher's Gotham.
Yeah. It's definitely a Gotham City look to it, though, for sure. Or maybe like a Dick Tracy, potentially.
Yeah, because when you bring up Dick Tracy, that makes me wonder what those villains that Ricky Jay and Captain Amazing are talking about. I kind of want to see those villains.
Yeah, sure.
We were kind of talking before we started, brother. Do you know anything much about the comic it comes from?
No, I don't. I know it's very strange.
Yeah, I think it's like a really loose. Like, didn't they only bring over like a couple of characters or something, and everything else is the movie?
I think so. But you were talking about the other characters you want to meet. I just have to stop and point out that one of my favorite lines in the movie, because of the way it's delivered, is when Rick Man is dead.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's another thing also. Talking about that and the 70s aspect. One of my first thoughts was, does anybody else really want me and my brother have talked endlessly about if they made a sequel to this and what that would be like. I would say, wouldn't you love to see a prequel where Captain Amazing fights Casanova Frankenstein in the 70s?
Yes.
And then that occurred to me, how old is Captain Amazing? More importantly, how old was Greg Kinnear in the 70s? I imagine it very, very young.
I mean, I just want to see the director make another movie. Because this is literally their only credit. Everything else has just been TV commercials.
So to answer your question, Greg Kinnear, as of this moment, is 59 years of age.
And what year is that?
1963.
So he would have been.
He would have been 16 when Casanova got locked up.
If we stretch the truth, he could have been in his early 20s.
We can go with that.
Captain Amazing as a character feels like he's in his 30s.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because it's clear that Casanova's his arch nemesis, and he would have to have been a hero for a while to have an arch nemesis. Because we could always assume that Casanova was his first villain.
I'd say so. It's definitely his Joker for sure.
And then all the others would have come after. Like, he fought all the others while Casanova was locked up. There's a really interesting backstory here that we kind of have to wing ourselves.
And then you wonder all the wannabe superheroes that use their powers for evil, and they have been taken down by Captain Amazing over the years.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of those ideas that you're wondering about could have been explored in our proposed sequel and flashbacks.
Yeah. Is there a way to get the microphone like kind of closer to you? Yeah, because you were super clear when you leaned in, and then you get kind of quiet.
Oh, that's weird.
Like we can hear you. You're just kind of quiet.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
What about now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to. I don't want to say you're gonna have to be like, you know, a televangelist, but it's like, give into your heart, folks.
You're gonna have to be Edward R. Murrow for a while.
Good night and
So,
good luck.
so the question we want to know, Chris, what does the tornado sound like?
So, do we want to? We were talking about Champion City. Do we want to go into the look of this movie as a whole?
I love the production design.
Yeah.
It's very creative.
Like I said, it's got a lot of Batman aesthetic to it, and I think that's another thing that made me gravitate towards it when I watched it originally. Because I didn't see this in the theater. I had to wait till many years later to watch it on. I believe it was just an apartment movie night. Because I didn't see it theatrically. I would absolutely if given the opportunity. Sounds like I'll get that maybe 6 more years. Fathom Events, get on that.
Yeah, because when you say production design, it's like you think about the city, but it's like kind of everything.
Mm-hmm.
There's Heller's Lair. There's the castle itself and everything in it. Even like the shoveler's bedroom is something that like weirdly sticks out. Jeff's room.
room.
Yeah. Like everything is so detailed. And what I also like is how they were clearly being ambiguous with the setting. Because when you look around Champion City, a lot of the signs are like in different languages.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's English and then it's like other languages underneath.
Yeah, the Pepsi logo on Captain Amazing's gear.
Yeah.
It's definitely not in English.
So there's so much detail in it. It's like I mean, once again, maybe it's the time we're living in now, but it genuinely surprises me how much this wasn't appreciated.
What's funny about that is
now,
the time capsule of its time. But if it came out later, it'd probably be more appreciated. But I feel like the aesthetic would have been lost later. I feel like it came out at the perfect time. It's just not the perfect time for the reception it needed to be successful.
Yeah. Where it's one of those cases where it's like you even though it bombed, you don't really want to change anything about this movie's trajectory.
No.
There was also another thing we didn't mention was the asylum as far as production design goes. I love how the asylum he's coming from is creepier than his own castle.
Part of me feels that's also credit, though, to Stephen Burham's cinematography. You can tell that he did a lot of, like, 90s De Palma stuff. There's a bit of Raising Cain and Carlito's Way and Mission Impossible and Snake Eyes. You know, the shadiness, but also, like, you know, the shot of the Mystery Men sort of march, which is iconic because it's sort of on pretty much all the posters and the trailers from back in the day. But there's a lot there that I think he does very well as well in terms of getting the tone right.
Well, it's crazy to think about talking about Shakespeare in Love because the person that did the score for Mystery Men actually did the same score for Shakespeare in Love.
That's an interesting jump because those were consecutive years.
And of course, cameoed as the band leader at the start of the film in the Grannies thing. And most recently has done pretty much all the Lego films, from what I remember, scoring them. Certainly did the Batman film as well as the other Lego ones. And then God knows how many video games as well.
speaking of Lego, that's another reason I'm glad the movie didn't come out now, because what are the chances that Captain Amazing is played by Will Arnett?
Yeah. Oh man, I hate how much I can see that.
I want to make it. I'll make it worse. Actually, I actually think they would go Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah, they do the marketing they did with Life, where they would promote it as, oh, we're so ballsy because we put Ryan Reynolds on all the promotion, and then he dies before the climax.
I mean, at the rate we're going, that should probably crew Chris Pratt, because Chris Pratt's in everything. That'd be the bait and switch, like Chris Pratt gets second acted.
But it's like, brother, I think you were saying this. How perfect, though, is the casting of Greg Kinnear?
I don't know that there's anybody else that could do it, and I would enjoy it as much.
Yeah.
Because I don't think like somebody like Ryan Reynolds would pass off as the billionaire lawyer, you know.
No.
You know, the thing. Somebody like Greg somehow has the sort of gravitas to sort of pull through, while also having comedic chops.
And weirdly enough, it's crazy to think before As Good as It Gets, the only thing that most people knew Craig Kinnear for was Talk Soup.
And Sabrina.
Yeah.
I think what helps Kinnear too is he has the comedy chops to pull off the funny stuff, and he has the dramatic bent to be able to play the straight man when he needs to. And I feel like he pings those perfectly.
Yeah, because something the movie doesn't touch on much, apart from the fact that he's just played up as an arrogant douchebag. I mean, I know it all comes from the arrogance, but I mean, still, when you think about the events that transpire, there's something sadistic about the fact that because he's basically bored with his life and his career is going down, he releases the most relentless supervillain that he can. This whole thing is because of him.
Yeah.
All because it's Japanese Pepsi and not Pepsi on that badge on his shoulder.
Yeah,
I think that's another thing too, is the fact that we were saying he was fresh off As Good as It Gets, and As Good as It Gets, he's such a sensitive character.
Yeah.
And then he goes right into this one, like when they set up his character by having him save the day, and then the first thing that happens when he goes outside is he plows through that kid that wants his autograph. And it's like you immediately know who that character is after that moment.
I'm trying to remember what the timeline is for The Boys in terms of the comic release.
Yeah, brother, you've mentioned that before, haven't you?
Yeah, I mentioned it in the notes I sent you in case I wasn't able to make it, that I feel like Captain Amazing would be right at home as a character on The Boys.
Yeah. He does feel like sort of a first go at trying to make Homelander. Because there's a little bit sort of arrogance, I'm better than you sort of thing.
I only know about bits and pieces of The Boys secondhand, but I know enough to know that I would do anything for a whole movie where Greg Kinnear as Captain Amazing is basically Homelander.
Going back to what you were saying earlier about a prequel, I think you said you had questions about different things. I have a question. Based on what we've seen of the two of them, how the hell did Captain Amazing win the first time?
Yeah. Maybe beating Casanova is what started making him recklessly arrogant. Like maybe he was like, because obviously he's a good superhero because he's put away everybody. Was it getting too good is what made him reckless?
Yeah, because that scene when he goes into his castle, he is pretty cocky.
Yeah.
Like he's like, oh, I know this. I know this.
You know that I know that you know. I just
And it's
look,
like it's to the point to where he's so lazy. You would think when that letter of recommendation was given from Captain Amazing to release Casanova, he'd have just written one, but he didn't even do that. He took his grocery list and he winged it because
I actually thought it was going to be like Goldblum in The Great White Hype. He was just reading an empty piece of paper.
and his arrogance, thinking that nobody would ask to see that.
Mhm.
so the
Somebody
boy,
did ask to see it, and he just tucked it in his pocket.
the first edition of the comic of the boys came in October '06. So maybe Mystery Men did inspire a little bit what Ennis and Robertson were sort of doing. Can't definitively say so, but it fits the timeline. At first I was confused because it said if you want the 1993 CBS show The Boys. I was like, oh wait, is that also it? No, just some random sitcom that was on for 6
What?
episodes.
What is the likelihood? Because if you were to say out loud, like if somebody like writing or producing or something was to say out loud, hey, I'm gonna borrow this idea from Mystery Men, this movie that famously bombed, financiers would panic. So how many people do you think silently stole from this? Or at least were silently inspired
I
by
mean, to
it?
be fair, the investors panicked with The Boys anyway, because after 6 issues, the original publisher canned it. And then somebody picked it up and published it for the other 6 years and is now making God knows how much money from the republishing and people getting the graphic novel style, the graphic novel style versions at bookshops and on Amazon and whatever. So, I certainly think there's a lot of elements that you could. I see sort of a little bit Despicable Me in there. Just because like the hero from Despicable Me 1 does seem very sort of that vein of cockiness of
Are you
Captain Amazing.
are you thinking of Megamind?
Megamind.
Wasn't there like a hero in Despicable Me 1 as well?
I don't think so. I feel like you're thinking of Metro Man.
Yeah.
I get that vibe 100%. A little Uber mind for Ashley.
Yeah, Captain Amazing, like Metro Man has serious Captain Amazing vibes. Especially since, well, obviously it was proven wrong, but for a lot of Megamind, we think that Metro Man died early. I guess this kind of goes in with the production design front, but I guess I wonder if one thing that was off-putting about this movie is a reason that I love it. Do you guys love how it feels very unique? How kind of bizarre this movie feels right away. Like I feel like people could walk into this movie and the very first shot, when we're in this giant nursing home, and there's, Mark Mothersbaugh and his band, and there's dancers, and it's like you immediately walk into this, and it's like, what the fuck even is this? It feels like an alien planet or something.
Got Tom
And
Waits like running around getting his Mac on.
Yeah.
It's already Lang's red eyes.
Yeah.
Tom Waits just in the corner going. Like,
Just as long as it's not Tom Waits and Dr. Parr, we're good.
But could that have been something that put people off? Was just the movie's kind of bizarre, but I love it for that.
That's the cult following for that reason.
I mean,
Yeah.
to some extent, like it had some production tribbles at first as well, because apparently originally the original director was supposed to be Danny DeVito.
Yep, I saw that too.
Like following on from like I think Hoffa would have been the last film he did before that. Maybe.
Matilda, probably.
Yeah. I know that I only thought that because it's the same cinematographer. So I thought
I could see DeVito doing the tone of this because DeVito's dark comedies are dark.
negotiations broke down over who would produce the soundtrack.
Yeah.
By the way, I own the soundtrack to this. It's somewhere here.
Are we talking the score or like All Star and all that?
The songs.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, Ben Stiller was approached to rewrite the script, but turned it down. And then they had to resort to turning to the Got Milk guy, which I don't know whether the experience he had with this made him like, I'm never working in movies again, because it sort of seems disappointing, because I think he did a pretty good job.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of talking about too, where it's like there's such a uniqueness to this movie that I feel like it's not getting credit for. And a lot of that is in the look of it and the feel of it. Yeah, because to my understanding, pretty much everybody involved in the making of this movie hated it, apparently except for Eddie Izzard. Apparently, Eddie Izzard said he was pretty psyched. I believe his exact words were, "I got to sit in a limo with Jeffrey Rush while Paul Rubens was farting in his face. That's a good experience."
And
But yeah, I guess Janine Garofalo went hard on this, saying like, it was this wannabe blockbuster that was really building itself to be something that it wasn't. Hank Azaria went pretty hard on it, and I guess what's that?
That's a shame.
Yeah, I to my understanding, the reason they were all arguing was that they couldn't, like, they were arguing over the tone. But it's interesting where it's like you could imagine this movie being tonally all over the place, but maybe it's just because I've seen it so many times, but the tone feels pretty balanced. Like it's pretty consistently everything that it is.
Ashley, you were talking about how you were comparing Despicable Me to Mystery Men. It's weird because I was literally today years old when I realized that Tom Waits is Dr. Nefario.
Russell Brand is Dr. Nefario.
No. Tom Waits is Dr. Nefario.
Oh, in the Mystery Man
universe. Same exact thing in Mystery Men that Dr. Nefario does.
Oh, okay. I see.
Because clarifications. I mean, depending how you feel on Russell Brand, maybe Tom Waits should have been Dr. Nefario.
Yeah. We won't go down that road right now, but
I have no idea what you're talking about. I have plausible deniability. And we are moving on.
And yeah, me and my brother talked about this too. When was it Hawkeye where they had non-lethal weapons?
I believe so.
Yeah, and it's like whenever I think non-lethal weapons now, the first person I think of is Heller.
I just love his delivery when he introduces himself in his very Tom Waits style that no one can replicate no matter how hard they try.
And it's one of those cases where when he says, "I'm here for the ladies," you believe him.
Yeah, you do. You want to keep him far away from said ladies, but yes, you believe him.
It's the power of Tom Waits and that voice, just like...
Oh, God.
Well,
one of my favorite Heller scenes is at the end of the movie when he sits down with his cereal and he has the news on, and what's he concerned about? He's like, "They ever get anywhere on that calculator?"
it's like at that moment he thinks they're dead, right?
Nope.
I like the bit where he just randomly puts the air raid siren on. It's like, there's nobody in the house. Why are you doing that?
He's got his own confetti too. It's almost like it's such a cliche thing, but that's one of those roles where you're like, is this a character named Heller, or is this Tom Waits being filmed on his day off? It could easily be either.
It's
Yes.
funny. Owen was saying he was like Dr. Nefario. I kind of feel like he's the Alfred to the Mystery Men's busted ass Justice League.
Yeah. He's the combination Alfred and Lucius Fox.
Yeah.
But he comes off more like Chief O'Hara instead.
And to think that as well, Stephen Warbeck did the score for this in like a month. And this is only like a year after also more Shakespeare in Love connection. He won the Academy Award for that.
Yep.
You know, it was like Mrs. Brown and Shakespeare in Love. Then it was the British short film The Duke in '98. And then Mystery Men, I guess, was his first sort of big, full-on a Hollywood thing, I would say. Then again, he sort of never really did... Oh, wow, he did Gold too. I feel sorry for him now.
Oh my god.
It's a good score. It's mostly overshadowed by the pre-existing songs.
Yeah, the licensed tracks and everything.
Shout out to Mystery Men, by the way, for everybody goes after it for being a bomb and everything. Shout out to Mystery Men for getting to All-Star 2 years before Shrek did.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was obviously a song that was overplayed at the time. But yeah, there were 2 years between this and Shrek.
Well, the music video is all about Mystery Men.
Yes, it totally is.
That was the thing as well. Like, that's like... It's like a actual, like, it's referencing all the trailer stuff. The only
They're
reason I
in the
know that is
trailer.
because of Tom
They're
Scott's
literally in
video.
music
When Tom Scott's video came up about the fact that all these videos were getting HDified and all that on YouTube, which basically made them look absolutely dog shit. Because whatever AI they were using to upscale it, like, doesn't know how to deal with that sort of footage, which is weird because when it transitions into the film footage, it works because it's at the right frame rate. But everything that was like the music video stuff, the Smash Mouth stuff, doesn't like is absolutely terrible looking.
I also want to shout out for somebody that didn't seem to enjoy making the movie, and for somebody that didn't have to do it. Man, I appreciate everything Jeffrey Rush put in this.
Oh yeah.
I almost want to say, because by the way, I love the fact that he was in between Oscar nominations when he did this movie. Because it was the year after Shakespeare in Love and the year before Quills. And I think him playing the Marquis de Sade in Quills is the performance of his career. I almost feel like Casanova Frankenstein was somewhat of a precursor to his performance in Quills. I mean, that's reasonable, right?
I do feel like his acting as well and his portrayal, like hamming it up somewhat, is like the early signs of what would become Barbossa, like 3-4 years later for Pirates.
I just love all like the subtle stuff that goes on too. Like it's not a super subtle performance, but there's subtle things in it. Like one of the things I always think of is when he tells everybody to go to the disco room, he does it by striking a disco pose.
I also love how nonchalant he is about knowing that Captain Amazing is Lance Hunt. And I think are we under the impression Casanova Frankenstein and Mr. Furious are the only people in Champion City that know?
I'm clear that has to be the case.
And one of the things I love about that debate is that Furious has a logical debate, but he doesn't go with that. He goes with he takes off his glasses when he transforms.
And here's what I don't.
Contacts aren't a thing in Champion City.
Yeah, because my question is when that argument ends with Eddie saying that doesn't make any sense. He wouldn't be able to see. When Mr. Furious stops arguing, is he saying like, "Oh my God, this is so dumb, I can't argue," or is he conceding?
I think he's just given up on the argument. And also, who says Lance Hunt's not wearing clear lenses that aren't prescription?
That would be such a him thing to do.
Yeah.
Actually, I want to. I don't know if it. Well, yeah. We should make that canon. That's what.
When he's Captain Amazing is just his glasses are fake.
Yeah, for some reason I'd never considered that, and now I can't see it any other way.
So he's Mr. Incredible.
Yeah.
Very similar time frame, so.
He feels half like Mr. Incredible and half like if Syndrome actually got to be the hero he started to want to be before he became a villain.
Yes. Very true.
Do we want to talk about the audition scene?
With Dane Cook?
There's Dane Cook, there's Doug Jones. What the detail I've always loved, I think it's technically a goof, but I like to think you can put like an actual legit reason for it. When Doug Jones shows up and he says, "I'm Pencilhead," the little emblem on his costume says PM. I think the story is he was supposed to be Pencil Man.
Yep.
And then they changed it to Pencil Head, and that's just kind of a goof on the costume. I almost like to think that it adds to the incompetence of the people auditioning.
And the irony,
yeah, but that,
Pinhead literally
pretty confident that he was son of Pencilhead.
What were you saying about Son of Pencilhead?
Who?
Did you say something about?
I did. I said he came in with such confidence that that's who he was.
Well, yeah, but I do find it hilarious the fact that Doug Jones of all people gets to play Pencilhead when he's known for being Pinhead.
You're thinking of Doug Bradley.
I'm tired.
But yeah, I don't fault you for that because it's a lot of makeup and that's Doug Jones' thing.
Also correct. I know it's Bradley too, but I don't know why I said that.
So while we're going on random backstories, Pippa and Son of Pencilhead, were they always a duo, or did Pencilhead work alone for a while until Son of Pencilhead was old enough to be a superhero?
Yes.
Dude, I'm going to take it a step further. I think with his enthusiasm, I think Son of Pencilhead had the idea to be a superhero, but he needed adult supervision.
That makes a lot of sense.
Because he's just so enthusiastic about it.
Yeah, like almost like Pencilhead saying, like, I'm basically just doing this for my kid.
Yeah.
That's why he's so timid.
Yeah.
I'm just hoping a science experiment went wrong and Pencilhead turned into the creature from The Shape of Water and it's actually the same universe. Because it does seem to have the same color palette.
I thought you were going to say Abe Sapien first.
I don't know why, but I imagine Son of Pencilhead to be like a Waldo from the Little Rascals.
Yeah, I can get that vibe. He's got spoiled rich kid vibes.
And I feel like with where he's so loud and his dad's so timid, I feel like he's also like got some Veruca Salt in him.
I was gonna say he's the kid that took Pee Wee's bike.
Yeah.
Although I'm still trying to work up what is up with Michael Bay being part of the frat boys, or was that just a sign of what was to come?
I was wondering if commercials were coming up, and I keep hearing commercials. Was Kinka Usher not also a music video director?
Yeah, but that was basically.
I wonder. Well, yeah. Bay did the very first Got Milk commercial, didn't he? The one with Sean Whalen.
Yeah, he also did the video for "I Touch Myself" by the Divinyls.
Wow. Yeah. So is that they probably just ran in the same circles, right? I mean, it's still it's still interesting that Michael Bay has a cameo in this, even when you know they ran in the same circles.
I like to think Michael Bay helped put together the explosion for the castle.
That's a fucking huge explosion. It's a really good explosion. I like that it's fucking purple. You don't see purple explosions, especially that big.
Like I said, it's
Practically.
the Batman Forever universe, and they go hand in hand.
Yeah, because we were talking about Danny DeVito being up to direct this at one point. It's like, I wonder what it would have been like. The fact that Danny DeVito's comedies were already really dark, but also Danny DeVito with his experience from the Batman Returns set, bringing some of that shit with it.
I feel like Amazing would have just been shot in the head.
Amazing's death as is horrifying. Horrifying.
I want the deleted scene where when the people start to go in to clean up the rubble and somebody finds Captain Amazing and they just come out and
The Blue Raja almost did. I love the continuous debate for the rest of the movie of whether or not Jeff killed him when he. But I think, like we were saying before, I think Jeff does not deserve the heat because if anything, in just a very roundabout way, Captain Amazing just killed himself by letting Casanova out. It's all his fault.
He's the one that didn't make it clear to either Roy or Carol as to, because clearly when they flipped the second switch, they flipped the wrong switch.
Yeah.
Because there was two switches next to each other, and he didn't make it. He just said 7.
I just love it. This is a machine that nobody knew could be made, but Captain Amazing apparently knows how to shut it down. So maybe he's better than we give him credit for.
He's the only one that had knowledge of everybody that was inside the asylum before Casanova blew it up and took them all to their grave.
Oh my god, it never occurred to me. They went through the whole trouble of the non-lethal weapons, but yeah, they're all dead in that explosion, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Whoa, that changes everything. I have an observation that weirdly enough didn't occur to me until much later in life.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know about anybody watching this, but I think me and my brother are the same way. I could not begin to count how many times we've seen this. It's so many I have no idea. But can we talk about the Sphinx?
Oh, good old Wes.
Cool.
I'll start with my observation of the Sphinx, which was his introduction. They plant a seed for his introduction because when they're first talking about him, Eddie says, "I heard he can cut guns in half with his mind," and that's how he stops the Disco Boys from killing them. The Sphinx never uses a superpower again after that. It's clear that he can, in fact, cut guns in half with his mind, and that never comes into play again. The only thing he does in the rest of the movie is he fires the shrink ray. That's it.
He wants to see those women with tight pants. The sick bastard.
The Sphinx is a freak, yeah.
Yeah.
Confirmed.
He's sort of the opposite of Mr. Furious. Like, you see the power and then nothing. And then with Mr. Furious, it's nothing, nothing, nothing. And then he powers up at the end.
That's an interesting take.
Who's the true leader? Is it you with your blooming craft session and group hugs? I don't think so.
I just love the image of him dressed in his mysterious gear in broad daylight.
I mean, he was at the end when he said, "We're the super squad."
Yeah, because I think what made this occur to me was, is it the joke that the Sphinx is kind of full of shit? Because all of his stuff is just doing a whole thing where he says one thing, then he says the other, the thing that Mr. Furious calls him out for. But then it's like, no, he still cut guns in half with his mind. It still happened.
And he put together the stealth plan to get in, didn't he?
Oh, did he?
I'm thinking he had a hand in it at least.
Yeah, free head, free footed eagle or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the great thing is, how do you guys feel about everybody getting their moment to shine in the climax? Because I feel like
starting off with the one that I didn't think would like get an opportunity to shine in Invisible Boy.
Yeah.
Because I was like, if only if this was modern, that shock thing that's at the top of the door would have had a camera in it, and somebody would have been watching the screen.
What were you getting ready to say, Owen?
It seems like that was the one I feel that was the most, to me at least, it felt like the most obvious, the one that was going to get its big moment at the end, because it's something that they've been building and building and building. And I know the joke would be he didn't, like, literally the fact that you could see him the whole time, because the whole joke was, you can only see me, you can't see, I'm only invisible when you don't look at me. And I was like, okay. And then it ends up being what pretty much saves the day at the very beginning, and it's just like everybody one by one got their high spot at the end. I like that too, because everybody gets to shine, like you said. It's like everybody gets their moment, and in a movie like this, there's a lot of time that they can devote to making sure everybody gets shine in the end, because it's not just one person that gets the victory, it's the entire group, and that's the point.
I feel like one person got kind of the shit into the stick as far as getting moments to shine during the climax. Given that his power seems pretty useful, it seems like a huge underutilization of the Blue Raja, that his only moment to really shine is to help Mr. Furious climb the wall.
He doesn't really do much.
Yeah.
We don't see what he's capable of. I see where you're coming from.
Are the forks seen as too potentially lethal?
Which is ironic because he doesn't deal with knives.
Yeah.
I'm not stab, man. I'm not knifey boy.
I do love the fact that they use that sort of teamwork to get Mr. Furious up the side of the wall. I thought that was done really well.
Are we under the impression I guess, because the position it puts them in and the drive that it gives them is the most useful thing the Blue Raja does in the movie is kill Captain Amazing.
Yes.
Well, I know, brother, I'm curious about your take on this, because haven't you said that the Blue Raja is your favorite character?
Yeah. Because I feel like he definitely uses it to kind of project like what he wants to be. Like, if that makes any sense. Like, because like when he's with his mom and stuff, he's very like soft spoken. He's very like skittish.
Yeah, the story of him and his mom has a really good arc.
Yeah. But and I like too that he's essentially, I mean, he has his moments, but he's essentially the only one that never really loses faith. Despite the fact that he created the biggest fuck up of all of them.
Yeah, yeah. Because another thing we talked about, the Invisible Boy having his moment to shine. Another thing the Invisible Boy does that's really important is he hypes up the spleen when the spleen's getting ready to fold.
Yeah.
Like if the Invisible Boy hadn't hyped him up, the Susies might have killed them.
Yeah, it's possible.
Owen,
Hmm.
got a question for you.
Oh God.
I know there is a type of humor that you despise.
You're correct.
So, what are your thoughts on the spleen?
I like Paul Rubens a lot. I think he fits really well in this cast. I think he fits really well in this role. And God, I wish he had a different power.
Even Pee Wee cannot save the spleen.
But
Literally.
it is utilized in a useful way.
The limo scene you talked about earlier, and I mean the stuff about how he's showing his power and everything like that to take out the person that's halfway across the room. I'm like, okay, I don't like this type of humor, don't get me wrong, but he's extremely useful.
It is.
It kills me to say that, but he's extremely useful. The fact that he has the same power as male 300-pound football fans. Thank you, George Carlin. Rest in peace. Still.
That's kind of what makes their dynamic with Captain Amazing funny, because some of them have legitimate abilities, and Captain Amazing doesn't really seem to possess those.
I hate to say it, but Captain Amazing in this circumstance would be Batman. Because he doesn't have any superpowers, but he's a billionaire, and
so his superpower is being rich and beating the shit out of people.
Exactly.
I would say the way that he's a social asshole, I feel like he's more like Tony Stark.
Yeah, he's Iron Man without powers.
Yeah, so like you hadn't gotten there yet, and it's something I hadn't thought about before. But just before you said Tony Stark's name, I pictured Captain Amazing's smile, and I knew at the very last second I knew where you were going.
That's somebody else I could have seen play Captain Amazing. I think Robert Downey Jr. could have done it.
Yeah, like in '99.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that.
That would have been wild for him to play Captain Amazing in '99, and then for 2008 to get here. Or is that the alternate universe where Timothy Olyphant ended up playing Tony Stark instead?
I don't know.
Wait, does that mean Robert Downey Jr. would have played Agent 47?
Or Raylan Givens? Do we have any theories on why, in the limo scene, Casanova and Tony Pete don't lose consciousness? It just seems to annoy them when the spleen uses his power.
Because I think it's used more like a flyby.
It's a defense mechanism.
Okay, so he definitely has different levels that he can decide.
That being said,
he can kill someone, but he doesn't always have to.
That being said, if you go to sort of like, bottles of Brute deodorant or fragrance from like the 70s and smelt them 20 years later, they probably smell just as bad as something that spleen would produce. So maybe they're sort of kind of mildly immune to it.
I'm not gonna lie to you, it smells like pure gasoline.
Yeah.
That might be true too, because in that insane asylum that Casanova was in, I guarantee there's probably somebody in there throwing shit on the walls.
For sure. Absolutely.
Dude, he does himself in Quill.
Yeah, he's the Marquis de
Yeah.
Sade. Right.
Yeah, because I was just gonna say, but wouldn't he want to knock them out? But yeah, I mean, or kill them? But yeah, I guess not, because then they wouldn't have they wouldn't know where they'd have cut off figuring out where Captain Amazing was. I mean,
kill the one
even though
person.
it's pretty clear where Captain Amazing is, but still.
Well, you kill the one person that knows where the person is hidden that is apparently supposed to be a secret, then that place, it remains a secret because there's no one that knows where it is.
And can we also appreciate the fact that simply trashing the car the shoveler is the only person, the shoveler and the bowler are the only ones that got critical hits on that car.
Yeah.
But the trashing of that car was means for going out and getting drunk to celebrate.
Furious made the bonnet smoke a bit. But, like, that was it.
Couldn't succeed in getting the hood ornament off, though.
Blue Raja keyed it with a fork.
Yeah.
After it had been smashed in.
Hey, man, I get the feeling he's kind of a pacifist.
Yeah.
That's why he doesn't use knives.
So are we to assume that the spoon at the beginning was in his artillery by accident?
Yeah.
Because surely it has no purpose.
No, it doesn't have purpose.
If he had the
No, but
right
it still hurt.
spoon,
It still hurt if he hit somebody in the face with it.
if he had the right spoon, because there are like some spoons that do sort of have serrated edges. Not like massively serrated, but sort of like something that sort of a standard sort of knife would have. I
Right.
don't know
Man,
whether
I
it's for
want
like
somebody to
it's
do
for some
like
sort of dessert or something.
I
So-
want to see somebody do like an anime style drawing of like a dark version of the Blue Raja where he has like serrated forks.
It's implied that he considered bringing a pie server to the climax.
I would think that at this point he probably has a spork somewhere too.
Yeah.
I
That could
could
be good
see-
for like short distances, probably.
Yeah. 'Cause he has like bullseye style accuracy when it comes to his when he takes his tests from the Sphinx. He basically learns how to be a lot more accurate with his throws, and you notice at the very end because that's how everything ends up going the way it does.
Yeah.
Because it's all the sort of magic and concealment.
Right.
You know, put the weapons down, slip them behind his hands.
Another shout to Ricky J.
I
Rest
wouldn't
in
be
peace.
surprised if that's what he was brought on to say.
Guaranteed.
How do you do the sleight of hand?
Hey, if it works for Nigel McGuinness, it could work for anyone.
Exactly. I do.
So
find
are
it,
we under the...
I do
somebody else
find
about to
it
say something?
interesting that apparently they had to change the ending. I am intrigued as to what was like so unpopular with the test audiences that led to, I guess, what we got with the bowling ball sort of saving the day, and like we get a Ghostbusters-esque finish.
I was
I
just
mean,
getting ready to
I
say...
like the climax. I feel like the climax is way better than it needs to be.
Yeah, because I actually like that. It makes sense that they originally used the can tornado because they set up the can tornado.
Sure.
But I like the bowler one because it's a character moment, on top of being a very effective way to destroy the fraculator. Because I was actually just getting ready to say right before this, the bowler is the most effective member of the team, right?
For sure.
Because she has like the definitive backstory. She's wanting revenge on those that killed her father.
The old Inigo Montoya motive.
And
It's
I
always
love the
fathers getting avenged too. Have you ever noticed that? It's never mothers getting avenged; it's fathers, always avenging the father.
And it's great because it's not always her. It's obviously her father's skull and that she's talking to regularly, so he's still getting his revenge out beyond the grave.
And can we give Janine Garofalo some credit?
Always.
The year before, Tom with a volleyball. I genuinely believe every conversation Janine Garofalo has with that bowling ball.
Oh, for sure.
I feel like she beat Tom Hanks to the punch.
Yeah. Now you mention it, very true.
There's that subtle moment at the bar where she double takes, like he's sassing her, and I just always think that's so believable. And yeah, it's like my brother was saying. I actually prefer the ending the way it is. I think because I like that it's like her final sort of character moment.
Everybody has varying levels of importance during the climax as well.
Yeah. Even the way, I don't know. Do you feel like Claire Forlani's character is shoehorned or not?
Well, obviously, given who I am, it's going to be kind of hard for me to not defend it. But
I think she's important to Furious's character moment where he transforms. To use his words.
Yeah.
She gives him confidence to be Mr. Furious after he gives up completely on himself to the point that he's not even.
Yeah, he has.
He's like, I'm just Roy.
Yeah, he has to be Roy before he's Mr. Furious.
Right.
Yeah. So I would say she appears to be, but I feel like she's extremely important to at least his story.
Yeah, because her getting taken is so last minute. Once again, I cannot even count how many times I've seen this movie. But whenever Casanova says, I think we need to take out some insurance, and how does he know that she exists again?
Because the Disco Boys followed him when he walked her home.
Yep.
So when he said, I think we need to take out some insurance, was he basically just saying, I'm going to have it looked into, like he didn't have a specific plan, just I'm going to look into how I can get to them personally, whatever that may be.
It literally meant he wanted to put insurance on his machine.
Maybe. In this world, probably.
I think like AJ's right. The original insurance policy is to get to him personally, and that's where Claire Forlani comes in. And they already know where she lives, so now they can strike.
And by the way, another thing that just never really occurred to me is the second half of this movie the longest night ever.
Yeah.
I don't know how it never really occurred to me for a long time that the night that Captain Amazing dies and the climax are the same night.
Well, like it's 30 minutes I think in the film between it feels like that when he walks her home and whatever, and then sort of goes back and basically says, "Oh, yeah. I might never see you again because I might die," and it's like, how was this the same night? It feels like things have happened between now and then, like that would take more than like 12 hours.
Right.
Yeah, because all in one night, Furious has he walks Claire Forlani home. He decides to go back. By the way, I love his line where he says, he knows he's dragging this out because he's like, oh, I can't go back right now because I like just left, and it wouldn't have any impact if I just went right back. So he walks her home. He goes back. He and Eddie hash it out. They go to the castle. They accidentally kill Captain Amazing. They go back to Hellers. They all go their separate ways. They all come back together. And then Roy has his crisis. And then they go to the castle, and the climax happens. That is all the same night. It wouldn't have made the explosion look as good, but I feel like at the very least, when they were running out of the castle, the sun should have been coming up. Because it is daylight by the time they apparently get from the explosion to the front gate.
We got a big money hustler situation on our hands.
With the climax, I'm also a big fan. It's only used once, but I'm a big fan of the Casanova Frankenstein finger can.
We get the exact same shot of Beldar and Coneheads
Yes.
when he sees Connie's tattoo.
I've been wanting to talk about heads for a long time on this channel.
I also love how Casanova has this sort of prissy way about the way he fights, but he still kicks Roy's ass.
That proves how much of a pushover Roy truly is.
And he doesn't even do it with a lot of anger. It's more so annoyance.
Yeah.
Like, I gotta do this again? Come on. Alright, fine. Punch, punch, punch. Finger, let's go.
We haven't even talked about his death.
Everything the Franculator does is horrifying.
It turns the people into Chunk from the Goonies.
Have you seen inside the Fraculator when that's happening?
No.
Mm-mm.
There's like faces on the walls, like screaming. It's like remember where the Creeper was throwing the bodies down in Jeepers Creepers?
Yes.
He'd made like a quilt of bodies. That's what it looks like. Like surrounding, like you have to like freeze frame it, but that's what it looks like when he goes deep into it. It's insane. We were talking about Roy having an identity crisis. There was one thing about that I forgot to mention that I love. When they're trying to make Roy angry on the way there, the line that steals the show is Sphinx saying, "You dress in the manner of a male prostitute."
Yeah.
Which is great. I love that the Shovelers is your penmanship is atrocious.
That's such a William H. Macy thing to say.
Yeah.
That sounds like a threat that Jerry Lundegaard would hurl at Carl and Fargo.
Which is really funny because Jerry Lundegaard's penmanship is intentionally atrocious because he's trying to get away with the serial numbers.
Well, then I guess he would know.
By the way, can we talk about? We all love Eddie as a character, but
Right.
is he when we look at the other characters, is Eddie especially pathetic because it's implied that part of his costume is his child's Little League vest?
No, there's no implication. That's exactly what it is.
There's a power struggle here between them for custody of this vest.
This is correct.
This kid, I'm assuming it was Corbin Blue and not the younger kid whose vest this was.
I'm sure it was.
Corbin Blue, who I believe has no lines. I think it's only Roland that gets lines.
Yep.
One thing I wrote down we haven't brought up yet is I love it only happens you'd think it's a running joke, but it only happens twice, and both times are with the bowler. The fact that the Blue Raja can't remember names is really funny. And it's not just that, it's the fact that they're so off. But I like the problem though is that I love that when he's trying to remember Carmine, he says Sal. But when she says, "Have you guys heard of Carmine the Bowler?" he like freaks out. So he clearly knows that name. It's like it's an inconsistent joke, but it's funny enough that I don't care. Were you about to say something, brother?
I just said he was probably just too amped, and he got ahead of himself.
And hers was her real name is Carolyn. What is it, Evelyn that he calls her by mistake?
Yep.
Yeah. At least that one's somewhat close. Sal and Carmine are completely on opposite ends of the universe.
I mean, are you just talking about the fact that C and E are close on the alphabet? Because Carol and Evelyn make no sense apart from each other.
They're close. They're closer than Sal and Carmine.
Oh man! I just thought of
What
something.
Batman character you're talking about?
I like Owen was talking about how it was Batmanish, and he uses Sal and Carmine, Sal Maroni and Carmine Falcone.
That's what I just said as you were saying the same thing. And you guys that listen to the live reaction can go back and vouch for me because I was saying the same thing as Chris was saying it. So we both said it at the same time. Both making the Batman reference.
This throwaway joke has so many layers, apparently.
Of course it does. It's 1999. That's how things worked back then. I am I do have everyone. Oh, by the way, I'm just curious right now since we're in a little bit of a not really a downtime.
I was just gonna say, I think I hit all of my notes. I was just about to, brother. Do you need me to pull up yours to make sure you hit everything you wanted to say?
Yeah, because I don't remember. I sent you a lot.
We also don't think I forgot about chat. I have it. It's just we're saving it to the end.
Yeah, we were talking about the look. One of the things you bring up is the angles too, where like the angles are another thing that gives me the vibe that King Usher was a music video director.
Yeah, because like the close up of Sally, the junkyard owner, the finger cam.
Yeah, the not so good mom getting hit with the blame thrower is very music video-esque.
Yeah. A lot of wide angle lens going on. Even Captain Amazing and Ricky Jay's conversation in the car has some weird angles.
Yeah. It makes everything feel kind of off in a weird way. Like you were talking here about while the death of Captain Amazing is funny, there's also like a sense of dread to it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like it kind of shows how not invincible they are.
Yeah.
And not just that, but like how horrific what this thing can do is.
Yeah.
You said this needs a Blu-ray release in all capital letters now! !
Dude, imagine how some of those shots of Champion City would look on Blu-ray.
Yeah. And you said you talked about the idea of the sequel having an arc where there's a Civil War thing.
Yeah. So I know you and I have pitched a sequel where Lance Hunt's son's the villain. But what if one of the arcs is like their fame gets to their head and kind of the original three break off and feud with the three that joined? Sphinx excuses himself and they kind of have to go that way. Because they always bicker, so the groundwork is laid there for them to have a blow-up.
Though you know what's crazy about the way you have the team split up? Is you have the main three, Furious, Shoveler, and Blue Raja. The other three are Spleen, Invisible Boy, and the Bowler.
Mm-hmm.
With the Bowler and the Spleen, the original three don't stand a chance.
Well, no, here's what would be interesting. The bowling ball would side with Furious, Shoveler, and Blue Raja.
Oh, that's...
Because he would say, like, my daughter's out of control, I'm going over here. And then when she tries to use it, it doesn't work. It just falls to the ground.
Also, it's like a Banner not being able to use Hulk kind of thing.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting. So that would mean that makes me curious how Carol would participate.
And the spleen would be effective, but he would hold back because the spleen would be the most conflicted. So he would use his weapon, he would hold back.
I
Like
can
he would
imagine that.
just switch it from kill to stun.
Yeah, that also makes sense because the spleen folds the easiest.
Yeah. And all this is going on, and when in the background, a mystery villain, which turns out to be Lance Hunt's son, is orchestrating chaos.
He's the Baron Zemo.
Yeah. Tell me you wouldn't want to see that with that extra wrinkle in, because we've never thrown that wrinkle in when we've pitched a sequel.
Like I said, I want that, and I want the prequel in the 70s. I want both of them.
Well, see, that would be how the movie flashes back. It would flash back to Lance and Casanova's original battle.
Oh wow, we're doing a Godfather 2 on Mystery Man. That's fun. Now we're getting somewhere. We're really getting somewhere now.
And I got a way to set it over the top. And the way it's connected is they find clues from the previous battles in the ruins of the castle that lead them to the identity of Lance Hunt's son.
That's interesting.
Well, I would say Hollywood could have it, but they're too busy not paying their writers. So some AI is going to write this and it's going to suck.
I think that's more or less. I think we more or less touched on. You talked about the climax being good, especially for a comedy. I kind of like how the climax has video game vibes, where it feels like it has levels because of the gangs.
Yeah.
And how like there's the moment where I've always, even as a kid, I felt this. It especially feels like a video game level where the shoveler has to fight through the hallway of the Disco Boys, and then Tony P is like a mini boss.
Yeah.
And then we have the second level boss with Tony P, and then finally the boss battle.
Yeah. And I feel like too, like whenever he has Casanova against the wall and he's hitting his elbow into him, I could see a combo meter going up.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that pretty much sums up what your notes were.
I think one of the only other things I said was, I think I just had one sentence that said Heller is a treasure.
Yes, Dr. Heller is a treasure, and you compared the Sphinx to a rambling Yoda, a babbling Yoda.
I now have that. I now have that in weaponized position just because of Jedi power battles.
I firmly believe that I don't know many people that buy their own bullshit as much as the Sphinx does.
But then again, he really can cut guns in half with his mind. we can't let this go.
I feel like that's a great point to jump off into the chat, Owen.
I'm just gonna sit here. I might as well go get a Pepsi or something and just like go let you guys like have at it for about another hour.
We could.
Oh, you actually will understand this reference. AJ might not get it. What if this is the inspiration behind Pepsi Phil?
Very well could be. This is how Danhausen ended up going rogue. Yeah. One of the things about this movie that we haven't really talked about much. We talked a lot about the great cast, and the cast is phenomenal. But one of the things that I gravitated towards for this movie was Eddie Izzard. And Eddie Izzard, well, to a lesser extent, Dane Cook, but because obviously I was on the Dane Cook ground floor before everybody started loving him, and then they started hating him, and vice versa. And Chris, you're the same way. You were in that group with us that were just watching Dane Cook left and right when he first broke out, before he literally became the biggest thing in the world.
Yeah.
Doing the Sufi and everything at XMCW, stuff like that. But that's dating me a lot, big time. But the thing is, at the end of the day, seeing some of my favorite comics in this movie was really awesome. The Paul Rubens stuff, obviously, wasn't a very big fan of his powers, but big Pee Wee guy, big Paul Rubens guy, takes it back to the Batman Returns, the conversation we had a little bit earlier, the Danny DeVito connection. So yeah, everything all connects in one way or shape or form. It's like that meme that I see, I see the board. I don't know what it's from off the top of my head, but it's like everything has like a billion different directions to go.
That's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
It might be, yeah, that makes sense. And we're still connecting. Eddie Izzard was a big thing for me. Dress to Kill was one of my favorite comedy specials, like probably one of my favorite comedy specials of all time. And I used to know that thing front and backwards. And knowing Eddie Izzard was a part of this movie, I was like, "Ooh, yes, please, let's go." And when he shows up for the first time as Tony P, I was like, "Yes, this is going to be amazing," and it was. And
you could tell he had a ball with it too.
Oh God, absolutely. And it's like I was happy that this was a thing that was existing. I did not know the existence of Mystery Men back in the day because I was graduating in 1999, so it's like I don't recall much about the theater back then. I remember going across town to watch cheap movies before they were cheap, when they were just a regular cinema that wasn't 1 and 2 and then 3, 4, 5 back in the day. But the thing is, it's like this took forever for me to finally see, and it just came up one night during an apartment movie night. Like, I don't remember who even brought it to my attention, but I just loved it. And I go back to movies, and it's weird because it's strange to think, and AJ and Chris and Ashley all would probably agree with me on this. It's weird what you remember. Like when you're finishing sentences of the characters, because you remember the dialogue. I don't know why, but I have not seen Mystery Men since the early 2000s, and I can honestly tell you that I Shovel Well is something I still remember to this day. Don't know how or why, but that's one of the things that I remembered, like, to a T.
I think it's just his level of confidence in it. He's like, I shovel well. I shovel very well.
Well, it's also like the line in Holes, digging holes builds character, and that's all I really remember about that movie.
One line I always remember from Eddie Izzard is at the end when he's facing the bowler, and his response, I can't remember what she says, and his response is just, because I'm a killer, and you're not.
I'm a killer, and you're not, yeah.
Isn't, I'm protected by the god of hair care, isn't that a reference to one of his bits?
Yeah. Simon, the god of hairdos.
Yeah.
Funny the film was
running,
like...
jumping, climbing trees, putting on makeup while you're up there.
Funny the film was 4 years later, and we would have had some reference to Jeff Vader.
Oh my God,
the Death
yes.
Star canteen.
Yes, that would have been amazing. And of course the squirrel bit that I can't quote on here because of the language, but I still remember that too. But if you haven't seen it and you like Eddie Izzard in this movie, check out Dress to Kill. Like I said, it's one of my favorite stand-up specials. It's kind of like, weirdly enough, in another Eddie in a completely different universe, it's how I dealt with Foolish, the Eddie Griffin comedy movie. And his Voodoo Child comedy special really got me into him too. So it's like, I love comedy. I love stand-up, and I love stand-up comedians in movies. And I'm like, oh, I know this guy. I know this girl. It's awesome. But I just like, that's what got me to really enjoy the movie, because it was a lot of my favorite comedians just hamming it up in a superhero movie. So that was enough for me. Kind of like a darker version of Galaxy Quest.
That's an interesting comparison.
Yeah. Ooh, that would have been a good versus. Anyway. But yeah. Solid. once again, very glad that it was brought to my attention again in 2023, where I was able to fully appreciate it.
To the chat, I guess.
Yes. I'm gonna take a shot. Welcome, chat. Sorry, it's been a minute. Yeah, we started getting messages a little bit before 6 o'clock. Josie, Brian, Spencer. We'll get to them. I'm surprised there are not a lot of Halloween costumes inspired by this movie, says Josie.
I feel like the only ones I've seen pictures of women dressed as the bowler. I think that's all I've seen.
So, go ahead, Ashley.
The closest I think I probably would have seen would be people dressed as Team Fortress 2's engineer, which is very similar in style to the Shoveler.
Okay. I will say, in my Bill and Ted's Excellent Halloween Adventure history in 1999, before Jack, a good friend of mine, who a fantastic actor, who again, gotta be a reason why I'm doing this. Who knows why? Very big fan of Ben Stiller's character, Mr. Furious, was able to portray him as a part of Bill and Ted's Excellent Halloween Adventure, and this has literally followed him through social media throughout time. So it's interesting to see how something that could be so small could be so big in someone's life. I thought that's kind of cool too. That's the only thing I can think of is that you had a couple of the characters in Mystery Men that were in the Bill and Ted show. But then again, that's how Bill and Ted works. It's all about pop culture. So,
who kind of jumping off that comment, who do you guys think had the best revamped costume?
Blue Raja.
I feel like his had the most detail.
Blue Raja had the most detail. I think Mr. Furious fits him very well.
I feel like the Blue Raja retired, and it was picked up by the lead singer of the band at the prom in American Pie.
Interesting.
Which is funny.
Out myself. Okay.
I was gonna say is the Sphinx's cowl supposed to look like a traditional bomb? With his hair being like the wick of it? That's what I always thought that was.
That makes sense, actually, now I think about it.
I like it's Ashley mentioned it, and it's pretty simple. I like the Shoveler's revamped look.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It fits better too, and plus now he doesn't have to worry about the
vest.
Josie says it's funny when they're in the diner talking as if nobody will find out their secret identities. It's not like there's a cone of silence or anything around them, like protecting the conversation. The right person here is like, oh, it's that guy. It's like that guy. It's like
all these again, of course, at that point, are they relevant?
No, not at all.
Let's talk about too how the diner having TVs at the table actually ended up coming true, because now when you go to Buffalo Wild Wings, they have a TV at each table, with the one here where I'm at.
Some locations do have that now. I've noticed that, and some of them actually have a gimmick where you can control the television at your individual table.
Yeah, I remember the one we used to go to out of town when we were waiting for movies had that, because I watched Bad Boys 2 on it. One of the times we were there.
You were watching Bad Boys. Josie says, wonder if the Daniels stole or ripped off the characteristic of the spleen from Swiss Army Man.
That could be.
Wouldn't surprise me. They have no original bone in their body. Imagine if the spleen sponsored medicine for gas.
I mean, they are probably all going to get deals like how Captain Amazing had Mighty Whitey toothpaste, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I can imagine.
I feel spleen would do something more for acne rather than something that would like make him, I wouldn't say impotent, but like if he had the medicine for gas, he'd be kind of useless as a superhero. So.
He would be speaking about Clearasil.
Dude, how amazing would that be to bring everybody hates the movie, so it never happened. But if they brought everybody back and a Blu-ray special feature was each of them advertising a product.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of who all would be. I feel like most of them are obvious.
These would be
Blue
fun.
Raja would be silverware.
Finger Hut. Finger Hut 100%.
The shoveler would be like a Home Depot or a Lowe's.
Probably
The
Home
spleen,
Depot.
I agree with you, Owen. I feel like he would be acne cream.
Clearasil. Or wait a minute, hold on. Given the time frame, it'd be Stridex.
Ah,
The only
The
one who
bowler
would be
from
shit out
bowling
of
alley.
luck is probably Invisible Boy.
What about him?
Invisible Boy, it's just a blank screen and he's doing voiceover.
I don't know. I just imagine him like as Santa's little helper in The Simpsons.
Or he could
Would
do
it
like
be?
Invisalign, those invisible braces. He could do those.
I was gonna say, would he be plugging security?
Yeah, that'd work.
Oh, that's a good one. And Mr. Furious would be plugging like anger management.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah, with not just the Furious angle, but Roy in general feels like therapy in general.
Like, he
no,
would
I
literally
feel like
go
he'd be
into-
doing an Arby's commercial.
I feel like he would go into the therapist office as Mr. Furious and come out as Roy.
And it'd be some sort of commercial for like Sprint or 10-10-220 or like America Online or just something random that had nothing to do with the fact that it's a therapy session.
When you said he comes out as Roy, I'm just imagining now that his therapist's office is basically his reverse Superman phone booth, where he goes in as Mr. Furious, he comes right back out as Roy.
Oh man, I just thought of another leg for our sequel, but we'll go into that another time.
Brian mentions good.
Go ahead with what?
I thought Ashley cut me off.
Nah.
I never can tell. Thanks, Discord. We now come into the movie that Brian says we now come to the movie that brought us All-Star, of course. Inspector Gadget, Digimon, Rat Race, and of course Shrek. And by the way, that song still kicks ass live, 100%. There's video on this channel that exists. Brian said, didn't know William H. Macy was in this, thought he was Willem Dafoe for a second. They look so similar.
They do?
I read chat. I shovel well. I'm shoveling a different kind of things other than the shoveler, my friends. Mystery Men came out the same day as The Iron Giant, The Sixth Sense, and The Thomas Crown Affair.
That's probably why it bombed.
Iron Giant bombed as well, though. That was the interesting thing.
Did the Sixth Sense bomb?
No.
Yep.
It was huge, wasn't it?
Would it hurt the Iron Giant and Mystery Men?
It's like the scenario again where Last Action Hero came out with Jurassic Park.
You know, the fun fact about that theater across town. Chris, you remember Town Square Cinema?
Oh yeah, that's where I watched Jumanji there.
I was what Jurassic Park was playing in one theater. Last Action Hero was playing in the other theater, and Amos and Andrew was playing in the third theater. Which one do you think I was in?
You were in Amos and Andrew, weren't you?
You're damn right I was. Remember getting a little movie facts gimmick, seeing the first trailer for The Crush?
I can see my Amos Andrew DVD. It's sitting right here beside me because that's where the A's are now.
That was a family thing.
I'm gonna watch those three together now. That's what I want to do. I want to transport myself to 1993.
Wow.
Speaking of Amos and Andrew, Nicolas Cage is somebody else that I could have seen in 1999 playing Captain Amazing.
Yeah, I see that.
What a crazy box office it was for its opening week. So Sixth Sense was number 1. Blair Witch Project, which was in its 4th week, was number 2.
Like you do.
Runaway Bride, the previous week's number 1, was down at 3. Then Thomas Crown Affair. Then Deep Blue Sea. Then Mystery Men. Then Inspector Gadget. So technically Inspector Gadget was before Mystery Men for All Star. The Haunting at 8. Iron Giant was only number 9. With American Pie at 10 and Star Wars Phantom Menace.
Yep.
Just outside the top 10 and 11th in its 12th week.
I don't even remember All Star and Inspector Gadget.
Same. Tom, so Josie brings up, as always, we have little tidbits about the movie. Tom Waits' odd hand gestures while explaining the psychofraculator were the result of him writing his dialogue on his fingers and reading the words as he went along.
Yeah.
Ebonite made... Go ahead, Chris.
I said that's why he's a treasure.
Yeah. The original bowler ball was a custom. However, after the release of the movie, Ebonite made a less detailed version as a part of the Super Fun Ball line. There was a happy accident where the spleen accidentally ignites a blast of flatulence standing by a barrel with a fire in it. The crew member had tossed a plastic lighter in the barrel.
So somebody tried to kill Paul Rubens, basically.
Yes. It happened to explode. It was small, but it was still an explosion. While filming, the reactions were created after the fact, capitalizing on the moment caught. 2011, there's an interview with AV Club. Hank Azaria claimed during production, Kinka Usher declared, "I'm going back to commercials when this is done. I've had enough. I'd much rather do my cool little 1-minute shorts that I make than deal with all this nonsense."
I guess that's why he'll never make another feature film.
I mean, it's a big ass movie to give somebody on their first time doing a feature length movie.
Oh,
I can see where he probably felt pressure.
oh, you mean like Kevin Smith and Superman? Sad, we'll never see it. But the evening with lives on. The Shoveler's motivational speech in the diner borrows heavily from the Battle of Agincourt in Henry VIII. Henry V, take a shot. I read that wrong. Captain Amazing was created as a replacement for the Flaming Carrot from the comic book series because it was felt to be too bizarre.
That sounds... In the realm of this movie, yes, that sounds unfilmable.
The Shoveler and Mr. Fierce are the only ones from the comic that made it into the movie. The Invisible Boy is not part of the comic book counterpart. Just like another thing that makes me really angry. So Chris, you hunt toys. We all know this. You know the Batman 66 television series action figures.
Yeah.
Why
Which
in
ones,
the blue
Mattel?
hell do we have a Two-Face from the 66 series?
I would guess it's based on the animated movie.
No, it's
Like-
not.
The animated. Oh, then I have no idea. It should be False Face.
Exactly. And it frustrates me. Just like the same situation. There is no comic book counterpart for Invisible Boy, just like there is no Two-Face in the 1966 Batman TV series. Frustrating. In fact, he was made up as a joke by drunken Bob Burden. The filmmakers loved it, and they added him to the script. Very cool. So Blue Raja sits on the fork. He yells Clavin. Obviously, Professor Frank, his voice from The Simpsons. Very appropriate. Zegazuntite. Zegazunt. Yeah, I never thought of that either, honestly. Say Gesund, which is be healthy. It's used as a toast, apparently, during the group salute. We also talk about Carmine, but in this case, it's actually Janine Garofalo. Take a shot. What's with me today? What? So Carmine is Janine Garofalo's dad's name.
Layers again to that.
Yes. Shovel fighting was used to the infantry in World War II. They dug their own foxholes, enemies unlikely to honor a call of timeout while they went to fetch their gun or bayonet. Casanova Frankenstein's castle is heavily influenced by the works of Spanish architect Antoni Gaudí, down to details such as railings, capitals on columns, and alcove, which the spleen and Invisible Boy cower. Comic book character on Kel Mitchell's bedroom door is Martha Washington. That was created by Frank Miller. More Batman reference. The long fingernails from Casanova Frankenstein was Clara Forlani's idea.
I've always found that interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Not only was he tapped to direct, Danny DeVito was going to play the shoveler at one point.
I don't think that would have worked as well.
Nope.
I was gonna say I can imagine him. I can imagine him in a few scenes. I can't really imagine him like fighting.
He could have done Artie Lang's part.
Devo come to life as a villain group. As Roy is walking Monica home, a store or restaurant sign in the background can be seen reading Flaming Carrots. Dane Cook's story about this is interesting. He was invited to the audition. They told him to wear whatever. When he showed up with a waffle iron and griddle marks on his shirt, Ben says, "What are you doing? You're supposed to waffle like you can't make a decision." Apparently, there's 3 Hebrew letters on the microphone of the reporter at the very end, and the word is slaughter. Interesting. Janine Garofalo's real-life parents met at a bowling alley. Did you hear about the urban legend about the fact that this is actually Tim Burton's movie under an alias?
I feel like I heard it's hugely debunked.
Yes.
Which would also make sense because this was the same year as Sleepy Hollow, and something tells me he had to be balls deep in Sleepy Hollow for Sleepy Hollow to turn out the way it did.
Confirmation that Kinka Usher is a pseudonym for Bumble Ward. If you know, you know. Ben Stiller and Hank Azaria, of course, were both in Along Came Polly. Hank Azaria and Wes Studi were in Heat. One of 2 movies in 1999 that Hank Azaria appeared in with mystery in its title, other being Mystery Alaska. We talk about the connection with Casanova Frankenstein and Pirates. He inspected an apple early in the movie. In Pirates 1, Rush's character, Captain Barbossa, has an affinity for apples.
This is the part where we're getting to like the really low end of the IMDb trivia, where when you look at where people voted if it's useful or not, most people said no.
Spencer Reed chimes in. Sometimes I call AJ the mystery man. What the fuck?
I mean, I do.
My glasses are gonna somehow like appear on my face out of nowhere, just like as a camera cut or something.
Spencer broke Owen. Shit, he's blue screened. Somebody restart him.
I mean, that's what I've attempted to accomplish. Yeah.
I love defending these superhero movies video.
Yeah, this isn't the first time Mr. Man's been on the channel. That's right.
Spencer says, Chris seems like a good guy to get wings with. Keep up the great work, dude.
Dude, I love me some wings.
Spencer says heading down to Orlando in 1 week. Oh, cool. He says party. Funny, Spencer reads at 6:28, proven that I basically copied all this and didn't look at it. Mystery Men sequel and prequel ideas. I've already gone through. Heck yeah. Okay. Josie says replace one of the 5 Art Deco set deck nods at the 2000 Oscars with Mystery Men. Would you replace The Talented Mr. Ripley, Anna and the King, Topsy Turvy, Cider House Rules, or the winner Sleepy Hollow? Or none at all?
Take out Cider House Rules.
No, it doesn't. And yes.
Dude, I fucking love the Sleepy Hollow one.
Oh, yeah.
AJ's riding the wave right now.
I'll probably ditch Anna and the King.
Chris, do you have a concurrent, or do you want to throw out a different choice?
I think I'll take out the Cider House Rules too.
No, it doesn't. And yeah, I agree.
Yeah, because every back in the day, whenever somebody would say the title, the Cider House Rules, that's how I would imagine they were saying. But yeah, I just want to take this time to point out Sleepy Hollow's production design win might be one of my favorite Oscar wins of all time.
It is freaking awesome. Costumes. Would you replace Topsy Turvy, which one? Sleepy Hollow, which obviously that's not going to happen. Titus, Anna and the King, or the Talented Mr. Ripley?
I might stick with those 5 personally.
Anna and the King kind of goes back to what we were talking about yesterday.
Sure.
About big movies and cinematography, and it's like, yeah, movies like that, of course, the costumes are going to be elaborate. It's expected, so I'm not that impressed by it. So that would probably be where I'd go.
Same.
I could say Mr. Ripley, but I feel like Mr. Ripley's nomination there is inspired, and I wouldn't want to take that away.
After watching it, finally, thanks to Movie Club, I would not want to replace it with anything. So yeah, I would agree with Anna and the King, but the only one that I don't have a connection to is Titus.
Titus is fucking awesome.
Or remember what exactly it is. So there.
Titus Andronicus.
Best adapted screenplay. The Cider House does not rule. The Green Mile, The Talented Mr. Ripley, Election, which I absolutely love, and The Insider.
Yeah, I'm keeping that the way it is.
Yeah, that can stay.
That's too strong. I don't think I would have thought about this for screenplay anyway, even though I love this movie. But even if I was, that's too strong of a lineup.
What year would that have been? What Oscar lineup would that have been?
This is all 99.
So it would be the 2000. This would be the 1998 movies, right?
No,
it'd be
released in
it'd be
August
the
99.
2000 ceremony for 1999
Yeah.
movie.
Okay, right. Okay, fair point. I love the fact Election's in there. That's a movie that I can still go back to, and something that honestly I'm not surprised. I'm kind of surprised it's not made it to this channel in some way.
It has.
Oh
Remember,
yeah, it's got versus.
You remember yesterday when I said I've done a Rushmore video, but I wasn't happy with it?
That would be what you did it with.
Yes.
So Josie asked who would win in a bowling match, the dude or the bowler?
Ernie McCracken.
Yeah. I was
Fair
gonna say,
assessment, but not in the conversation.
I was gonna say, you're asking us to choose between the guy we never see bowl or the person with a supernatural bowl. I'm sure the dude is good, but the bowler's ball is supernatural. It's gonna do whatever.
Right. Josie says, imagine the shoveler helped the good fellas with the digging.
We never see him shovel, do we?
No, we don't.
I mean,
We only see him
based on
shovel
appearance,
a weapon.
if I would assume he's a construction worker.
Now, I looked this up because I saw that I got this message. There's a 1971 movie called The Point. Came out in 1971. It's Dustin Hoffman narrated it, and Ringo Starr's a part of it. Harry Nilsson has got music involved in it. It's got a lot of names from people. It's weird. It's got a lot of very recognizable names of its time. Josie says, look up the movie The Point. That's Son of Pencilhead. And in the movie, there is a character called the Pointed Man that has a left and a middle head.
You were saying that the shoveler would be... Oh, it's on Tubi, so apparently I can do that. The shoveler would probably be a construction worker.
Yeah.
I kind of assume that also, but if he was a construction worker, would he have his own vest? Not have
Probably be provided by the company.
Yeah, that could be.
I have a feeling he either quit his job to fight crime or he got laid off. And he had to do it for necessity.
Oh, I could see him being laid off.
Easily being laid off. That's the reason why his wife's always down on him all the time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I'm literally picturing the Adrian Toomes arc, just he went the hero route instead of the villain route.
Right. Parsonenberger says, never seen Mystery Men. It's solid. You can check it out if you get a chance to. Brian says, I know Ashley's pick is next week, but I forgot what it is. We'll get there. And you know what that means. Pop the question. It's time for a poll. Ashley Lee.
Is that it?
Ashley doesn't ever come back. Paper, apparently it's not.
As I said, we reached the 2-hour mark. That's pretty much...
Yeah, chat's done. So that's what we're going to do from now on. If you have anything that's relevant, put it in chat. If you don't, we have a QA show for that. So we'll be back. See, the schedule's going to be different, obviously, in 2 weeks because it's double or nothing weekend. So we're going to be doing Monday and Tuesday instead of Sunday and Monday. Yes,
There it is.
We were saying to keep things consistent, it'll probably be the movie club Monday and the Q&A Tuesday.
Yep. That's what it looks like. It's a long Good Friday.
The thing I appreciate, legit actual steelbook. Before steelbooks were fashionable.
So I get to watch a movie with Eddie Valiant and the Queen. Let's go.
Which means there's some sharp edges on this, which means this can actually be used as a weapon in the Long Good Friday. That's pretty interesting.
And, brother, if I remember correctly, because you and I are probably going to have to use the same method. Yes, it's still on HBO Max, apparently. I was hoping, because when Ashley first said this, I was like, oh, it's on HBO Max. I hope it's still there when we do it.
If not, I may have something I can assist with.
Of course, then again, the rebranding will happen, I think, before the next video, so hopefully that doesn't kill it.
Ooh.
I mean,
I guess we'll
probably
find
not.
out.
I'm not
I have
sure.
no idea what the hell the rebranding is going to do. I don't really know. I don't know.
As long as it gives AEW a lot of money, I don't care. So, that's episode 29. Episode 30 is coming up 2 weeks from today. That should be right. Because we're doing Movie Club on that Monday. the Monday after Double or Nothing, Memorial Day weekend. And then we were back with more QA on Tuesday, like AJ just mentioned a minute ago. And yes, we'll have a poll. Pick the next movie in 2 weeks. And I dearly hope in the next 2 weeks I have good news for everyone.
I was just looking at one of the Just Watch as to see where it was available if it wasn't on HBO Max, and I noticed that one of the countries where it is available, this violent gangster film, the Vatican City. What the hell are they doing in the Basilica? What the hell?
Well, speaking of that, so at the end of the day, I feel like, Chris, we're going to have our final thoughts, or are we going to have we basically had our final thoughts at this point? I feel like we have. Unless there's anything else anyone else wants to chime in on, or Chris, because it is your pick.
I'm good. It's a movie that I usually watch at least once a year, partly for the nostalgia and partly for just the fun of it.
There we go. Well, since you're already talking, we'll continue. Put yourself over.
Instagram, Chris Hunts Toys, YouTube and Spotify, the Figures and Flippy Shit Wrestling Podcast. Take a shot.
God. Exactly. Ashley.
Yeah, you've got content from me coming up hopefully in the next week or two, covering some McDonald's stuff along with other stuff that still needs to be filmed. You can find me on Twitter at AshIsMyNameUK, where mostly I'm just trying to enter competitions to win stuff.
Yes.
And stuff that's interesting. That might be interesting to you, but it might not. Who knows? All I'm getting distracted by is Yuka Sakazaki is now an Xbox achievement.
That's interesting.
I guess that means that the game's gone gold because you have to submit the achievements before they go live, so...
Interesting. AJ, of course, just like Keith Richards, cannot be killed by conventional weapons and also cannot be found on any form of social media. But if you'd like to leave him a comment, you're more than welcome to on any of the videos and give us ideas for verses or reviews or things like that. We'll take them under consideration like we always do. There's been some really great content on this channel that's come from viewers just throwing out ideas. And we'll continue to do that. AJ will be back with his next movie review. 3 movies. All things I enjoyed. John Wick 4. In my mind, the best movie of the year, which is Air. And a movie that is very strange to put with those two, but it's something I very much enjoyed, and that's 80 for Brady. All that's coming soon, and more reviews too. AJ finally gets to see the movie that we were putting over like crazy last night, Blackberry. So that's going to be fun. Follow me on Twitter at SirOwenDisney, and if you want to follow at Popcast Network, you can. I just basically I'll accept things, obviously, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's basically just used to promote the channel and everything like that. So the Facebook fan page is pretty much deader than Kelsey's nuts right now. I might someday decide to write on it. Who knows? We'll see. We got a Discord server if you want to add to it. There's going to be a link in the description bar below. I've got plenty of Voices content. I've got plenty of sip and snacks of items that don't even exist anymore. And I will continue to do so. A lot more energy drinks, a lot more sodas, lots of cool things still to come. And stay tuned because September, October, going to get fun while I get spooky, fingers crossed. Needless to say, that's your show for today. And in the meantime, I want to thank you guys and girls out there for watching. Stream intellectual property, go see water parks when they're available, and in the meantime, that's all we got to say about that.